Good morning. Okay, we might have a few people still joining us, but I think majority of the people are back. So good morning, everyone. We are excited to welcome you at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences this morning. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, congratulations on receiving your offers. That's amazing. It's really sought after. A few announcements before we get started. Please note the sessions are recorded, although the audience won't be on camera. These sessions will be used in the digital Next Gen Marties event taking place in November. So please keep an eye out on your emails for those invitations because there will be additional videos from each of the course coordinators for you as well with that event. This morning, we will have two panel discussions. The first one is the parent focus discussion, where we will discuss the next administrative processes, as well as give some guidance on preparing for your transition to university. And then the second panel discussion will include our students from the various programs. Your first presenter this morning and chair of the first discussion is Ms. Farah Fredericks, the Deputy Registrar of Academic Administration at Tygerberg Campus. She will be followed by Ms. Lemise Chetty, our academic advisor. And then once the presentations have ended, we will then continue with the panel discussions where you will have an opportunity to ask the rest of our panel some questions. Farah, over to you.
Good morning. Goeiemôre, Mweni. Assalamu alaikum. Hoe gaan het? You all look so nervous. Is it because the matric exams are coming up? I don't know who's more nervous, the parents or the students, because I know the parents also stress quite a bit. I'm Farah Fredericks, Deputy Registrar Academic Administration at this campus. So today I'm just going to share some information with you, the boring stuff, you know, the administrative stuff, boring but very important, very important. So the first thing is, who are we? In our center, we support students through the full student life cycle. You would have been receiving communication from the undergraduate selection office about the selection process, what to expect, etc., etc., etc. And we will also then be engaging with you early next year, as soon as the final matric results are available for those of you that are still writing matric. We will then be issuing your final offers. We are confident that you will meet the minimum criteria of the program so that we can make you a final offer. That's the only requirement on our end from Stellenbosch University, is that you meet the minimum criteria of the program that you've been admitted to, and then you'll definitely receive a final offer from us. Thereafter, you need to register. And registration is very important. At Stellenbosch, we don't ask an upfront registration fee. I think as a registration, excuse the registration date, that's this year's registration date. We will still communicate next year's registration dates with you. But you'll be able to register online, so you can register, self-register. It's very easy to register in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences because all of your modules are compulsory. You don't have to make any decisions of, oh, am I going to take economics in South Africa or global economics? No, you must just take what we give you. So you'll register for all of the modules every year for the duration of your study. So it's quite straightforward to register. If you're struggling with the online registration process, all you can do is contact our student and program admin office and they can support you with registration. Once you're registered, you'll also need to, and arrive on campus, you'll need to submit specific documents. And again, we're going to communicate with you. So you'll need to submit a proof of admissibility document. That's your matric certificate. You're also going to have to bring along certified copies of your IDs, certificates, etc. for your professional body registration. So as a student of the university, you're not only registering with Stellenbosch, but also with the Health Professions Council for 5 of our 6 programs. That's medicine, physio, dietetics, and, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. And for our nursing students, you have to register with the South African Nursing Council. But we guide you through the process and we support you through that process. We also charge your registration fees with the HPCSA and the South African Nursing Council directly to your fee account. So you must never pay the HPCSA and the South African Nursing Council ever for registration as an undergraduate student directly, we will facilitate that for you on your behalf. So please be mindful of that, because the HPCSA are very naughty. They are going to send you an SMS to say you must pay your fees. Don't. We've covered you. You are still going to pay it. We're not paying it for you. We're charging it to your student account. We support students in guiding them through all of the HPCSA regulations and requirements. And beyond the HPCSA and the South African Nursing regulation and requirements, we also have to adhere to legislative requirements. So many and most of our students are training and have exposure to and in some way performing some kind of health service to vulnerable groups. So who are vulnerable groups? Those are children under the age of 18. They are women under the age of 25. And they are people with mental disabilities. And also people over the age of 60. Are there any people over the age of 60 in the house? Because according to the South African government, you're seen as a vulnerable group. There we go, sir. Congratulations. So we also have to comply with the Child Protection Act and the Sexual Offences Act. And we need to vet our students against those two registers as well as part of the process. But we'll engage directly with students and we will facilitate that process on your behalf. It's new. It's a new requirement. We've never done it before in all of our programs, but we have to comply with national legislation and fulfill that requirement. So this is just a heads up. Don't worry about it. We will guide we'll guide our students through the process, and welcome, please come inside, and facilitate that. Then in terms of student fees, I've mentioned you're not going to pay an upfront you're not going to pay an upfront registration fee when you register at the university. But your first account fee needs to be paid. It's by the end of February, your first installment towards your tuition as well as towards your accommodation. You have to, however, pay a deposit for accommodation if you've been offered a place in university accommodation. And that's very important. That deposit goes against your accommodation fee. So it's not on top of your accommodation fee, it's credited towards your accommodation fee. But again, the university will communicate all of these kind of aspects with you. We've got a student fees division that have colleagues seated and situated on our campus who you can engage with. And then once you are registered and as part of the registration process, we'll also issue you with a student card. No, I'm not going to show you mine because the last photo I've taken on mine was in 2007 and I will keep it on that card forever. But you'll get a university student card, staff or service staff card. That student card gives you access to all of the facilities where there's card access. You have to carry your card on you all the time. It's your proof of identification. If you go into assessments, you have to have your student card, etc. So please, you'll learn to keep it safe. And on the back of our student card, it's really nice, there's also emergency numbers. My colleague Annelies Scholz is here. She is always in the hot seat. Annelies is sitting on the far right. She's like trying to make me not show you who she is. She is our colleague that deals with student accommodation placement. So you would have started to receive communication around accommodation placement on this campus if you're going to be based here. So we know that our occupational therapy students and speech therapy students are first on the Stellenbosch campus, very nice. And then they come to a much nicer campus later on in their studies here, the Tygerberg campus. And then the rest of our students start at Tygerberg and stay at Tygerberg until you complete your studies. We also have an assessment administration office. These are the two ladies who run the show, Pumeza and Nelly Siwe. And they run all of the written on-campus or electronic assessments and engage with the academic environments. They also manage all of the invigilators. So in their office, they coordinate all of the assessments, but they also support with assessment concessions. So for parents to know, how are your children going to be assessed? Some have written assessments, like a old school. Some do online assessments. So it's either multiple choice questionnaires, or they have long answers that they have to give, etc., or multiple, I've already explained multiple choice. Then you also have OSCEs. Now, what's an OSCE? An OSCE is an objective simulated clinical examination or assessment. So an OSCE is a clinical assessment that you will have to do either on a real human being, on a patient. We're not going to send our first years to examine patients immediately. But we will teach you. We've also got a clinical skills and simulation unit where they'll train you, but I'm sure the academics have shared all of that information with you. In terms of where you can get information regarding assessments, when am I doing an assessment, what's the content of the assessments, they are generally in the module guides or in the study guides or program guides of the programs. So parents, you may phone us and say, oh, I don't know when my child is doing an examination. Our answer is always going to be, not school anymore, mom and dad. Your son or daughter needs to know. So please coach them and remind them of their responsibility to find the information. They also have an administrative responsibility. We support assessment concessions. So what are assessment concessions? If you need extra writing time, if you need a scribe, say for instance you've broken your hand and you're unable to write, you can apply for a scribe, or if you have other kind of assessment needs. These aspects should have been declared upon application already so that we can determine how we can and if we can support you. So if you haven't declared that, please declare that. But we have a number of assistance techniques available to support people with assessment concessions. Then leave of absence. Leave of absence is important. If you need to take time off from academic activities, there are specific rules related to that. You can find it in the university's general yearbook. That's generally and freely accessible to parents and students. But there are specific rules regarding leave of absence. You can't just come and go as you please in programs in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, because almost every academic activity is compulsory. And because of the nature of training, which involves patients and involves practical simulations, etc., those are very, very hard to duplicate. So if you miss it, then it's unlikely that we're going to be able to repeat it if there's not already a repeat opportunity available. So always remember to stick to the rules and engage early on regarding absence. If you fall ill during an assessment, we support you with that. Generally, our invigilators are trained to support students who fall ill during assessments, and we'll treat each case on a case-by-case basis. Then parents want to know, I want to know what the results my child is getting. So Lamish Chetty is going to guide you on all of the academic support initiatives in the faculty. But one thing you need to know is to manage your expectations. The performance of your child in high school is not necessarily going to translate into the same performance at university. It's a totally different learning environment and totally different way in which we learn and teach our students. So expect a change. Expect a change. It doesn't mean that they are not intelligent or that they are not performing well. It's a different application and a different level and skill set that we are teaching them. But if students want to receive the results, we've got official platforms where they can receive the results. Your official results that will be issued on your transcript will be available on the university's administrative platform, Sun Student. But you may also receive interim results via the FMHS Learn platform. That's a Moodle platform, aka FunLearn. You get it? FMHS Learn, FunLearn. So that's one of the aspects there. Here are our contact details. This is the contact detail of the Assessment Administration Office, and this is what I want to get to finally. So parents, a lot of you may believe, well, maybe you don't believe it, but I've heard this a lot of times. I've been at the university in an employee capacity for 15 years now. And I've had irate parents phoning me saying, I pay the account. Why can't I receive the results? So now that your son or daughter is coming into university, they are our main client and stakeholder. And you are unfortunately seen as a third party. So any engagement with you has to be done with the permission, written permission of your child. We don't mind engaging with parents, but we'll always ask for permission from the student to engage with you about anything about them, whether it's what program they've been selected to, what's their, well, in terms of account, that will get sent to you because we ask for permission up front for that. But if you're asking for the results, if you're asking about have they been attending classes, have they been absent, what's their disciplinary record like, we have to get permission from the student first before we engage with you. And I'm sure you're aware of that. It's a national legislative requirement based on the Protection of Personal Information Act. Then, every year, students have to re-register. So what are the conditions that we require you to re-register? One, your fees have to be paid up for the previous year, or we need surety from a funder that your historic debt will be covered in order for you to register in a new academic year. And lastly, you must be academically eligible to re-register. What does it mean to be academically eligible? You should have passed the minimum required credits in order to re-register. All that information is in the university's yearbook. I'm going to say it again. Students must timeously apply for leave of absence, and formally. There's a form. You have to have it signed off by your program representatives, by the program leaders. It's important. Please don't arrange holidays and then on the eve of the holiday, you go, oh, I see I've got a rewrite. Do I choose the holiday or do I choose the rewrite? Is the university going to be lenient? The answer is no, we won't be lenient. You have to plan accordingly. So also plan for the possibility that you may have to do a reevaluation or reassessment, etc. Because we don't know what could happen to you during an assessment, and that could be the situation. We are finalizing the faculty almanac, so our year planner for 2026, and that will be posted on our website soon, and we'll also post a link of that to our newcomer students. And then lastly, parents, it's your son and daughter's responsibility to familiarize themselves with the rules of the university. Generally, if you pass everything, you stay out of trouble, you're kind, you're respectful, you won't necessarily ever have to look at a rule book. But in some cases, you may have to apply for leave, and then, oh, now I need to go to a rule book. Or I may have had a hiccup and failed a module. Then you'll go to the rule book and engage with the rule book in terms of how to manage that. Or you find like, oh, I don't feel like I'm being treated fairly here. How can I report this? How can I appeal this? Then you can engage on the rule book. If you have any questions regarding the rules, guidelines, etc. of the university, just reach out to our offices in the Center for Academic Admin, and we will support you. And I think that is all from me. These are our contact details. This is our website. So just so that you're aware, the university's website has just been relaunched. So we've got all new web links and all new, a whole new interface. What we will do from the Center for Academic Administration is communicate with all newcomers in November. So we try and time the communication after the release or after the conclusion of the matric exams, because you know, we know that October and November is not a lacquer time to be communicating with matriculants, because all you are thinking about are those exams. So after that period, we are going to communicate with you regarding the registration requirements, registration dates, all of those kind of aspects. And then all of the links to all of the information that I've mentioned here will be available there. So please don't worry about it. The only thing I ask of the students, our prospective newcomers in the room, is share it with your parents. Okay? Don't be that person to not share it, to be on like Sunpais Beach and go like, okay, no, I'm going to go and take a dip in the ocean. Check your phone, check your Gmail account, and just forward it to your mom or your dad and say, listen, here's the info. and then go and relax further and enjoy the rest of your December holiday. That's all from me. Thank you very much, and I'll chat to you soon.
Thank you so much, Farah. Next, I hand over to Ms. Lemise Chetty.
Good day, parents, prospective students, and guardians. A very big welcome to the faculty. I'm Lemise Chetty. I'm the academic advisor in the faculty. And this morning, I think it's a really, amazing achievement for your child to have been accepted at university. And what I'm going to be highlighting today is trying to giving a little bit of helpful advice in terms of, preparing to become a health science student. It's somewhat, as I think Farah alluded to, is probably a very different type of student that we look at, especially in the faculty. And also probably you'll see how your child will develop and grow during this time. But there will also be a little bit of concerns that might also happen going forward. So for the prospective students, I'm sure you've worked a very sort of smart way in terms of determining where your career will take you, and also probably thinking about getting into university. But I wonder if you've ever asked yourself, what does it actually take to become a health science student? How do you sort of think about this perspective in comparison to what you are right now? So I'm sure your journey has really been cascaded around working, really hard, trying essentially to practice and sort of perfect your study strategies, but now sort of preparing into this new chapter. What could you think about going forward? So when we look at it, I like to try and build a perspective around a tangram puzzle. For those of you that don't know what a puzzle or a tangram puzzle is particularly, it's the following little item above. So you can see, when you look at a tangram puzzle, there are different pieces to fulfill this puzzle, right? It's not your average different little pieces. They all look the same. They might have different colors. But the tangram puzzle particularly has different sizes and different colors per se. So when we think about becoming a health science student particularly, and I'm sure if you look in the front on the right, there's a few students sitting here, so they might also be sharing a lot of these perspectives as well, is when we look at it, I try and think about what is it your essential toolkit to prepare you for this couple of years ahead. So firstly, I think it's no surprise that the first thing is about scheduling time. And I'm going to give you a little bit of more perspective later on as to why this is an important aspect. Secondly, your studying methods, right? So yes, you've perfected study methods, and yes, your child will probably get really good results. You as a learner is probably have perfected your study methods. Then we look at note-taking. Note-taking, and particularly skills around taking notes as well, becomes an important part of becoming a health science student. And lastly, I think coping mechanisms. So with this perspective in terms of these 4 aspects, this is a very important part of a prospective health science student to probably perfect the way in order to cope and learn and grow in their course. So why do we say scheduling time? Scheduling time, I'm sure, you've got your school day in order, you probably do a little bit of activities afterwards, but when you become a health science student, you must also realize your academic schedule becomes longer, right? So no more, you might be getting up early, I think that is all good, starting your day at school, but more or less probably about 2 or 3:30, the day has come to an end. However, as a prospective health science student, it's going to probably be a little bit longer. So parents and guardians, you might not hear from your child up until 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. That's generally how the schedule runs, right? And I can see a lot of laughs and nods going on there, right? So they know what I'm talking about. Secondly, it's also about allocating time after your classes has end to study, right? So there's more time that needs to happen in independent working. So yes, you'll probably be sitting in lectures during the day, but in the afternoon, it's about becoming disciplined and structured to work after hours. Then also, yes, for potential parents, guardians, yes, your child now needs to probably cook on their own, packing lunch, and also cooking supper in the evening. So yes, when they come to the residence space, there's a bit of extra time that happens there, that they are going to be doing things that they really need to be nutrition for the day, eat, and hopefully also hydrate themselves. And then lastly, I think with regards to prioritizing time is really about looking into how you can connect with your loved ones, okay? So prospective students, you might find maybe a day goes by and there's just no time to connect. But it is very important to see when can this be done, right? And I think also parents, guardians, be a little bit more lenient. Maybe they've just had a time to send you a message or a text, but they probably will have time to really talk to you when it can allow for it. So I think what I'm trying to say is, with your sort of contact that you have now with your child, it might be very different when they enter the space coming next year. All right, now studying. I think a lot of students discover that their study techniques probably don't work. I don't know, for you guys? No, right? Lots of heads. And that's very true. The hard work that they've done at school probably is a little bit of, you can probably say your child has a high IQ, okay? They've perfected themselves in the school-going system. But coming to health sciences, it's a whole different ballgame. They have to learn how to study. So it's important that, I think, memorization, does that work, guys? Not at all, right? So no more can you do word for word, paragraph for paragraph, start to end, as they probably have been doing, studying right now. You have to study by firstly understanding, secondly conceptualization, and thirdly to recall. Now, within the certain curriculum of the students, there is a particular aspect to become a health professional and becoming a student that is covered in their first year. And we cover this quite deeply. So if your child or your son or daughter says, oh, I don't know how to study, please tell them, make sure you attend that part of your classes. There's important stuff to be learned there. Then it's also about the learning preferences, understanding your right and your left brain. So this has got a lot to do with, neurocognition, understanding how your brain works, and your child does learn this, right? If they've said to you they haven't learned it, guess what? They might be lying. So it is definitely covered in the curriculum. Then lastly, I think it's about metacognition. It's about how to learn, learning about your learning. So yes, the memorization might have worked for you now, and it's, gotten you great results. But the part about studying to retain knowledge is about understanding. Farah alluded to clinical skills. The aim is really that the knowledge transfer over to practical. Your child must be able to elicit these skills from theory to practical. This is why the exposure to the clinics, the hospitals is so important. And there's an understanding of not just sort of foundational skills, but practical knowledge application. Then, note-taking, practical skills. So, yes, your child will probably also have to learn how to take notes, okay? And again, it's not just about the fancy digital stuff. Your child does not need 4 devices to come into university, right? Ideally, they should have some way of capturing the information. This could be digital. This could also be handwritten. They should have a smart device, okay? Our university works with an authenticator. Your child must be able to authenticate themselves through a smartphone. So if there's one thing that you walk away from here, no fancy iPad, tablet, or, laptop of what 50,000 is needed. No, it's about what is possible that we can do. And then also, nothing is wrong with handwritten notes. I often say a lot to my students when I work with them. You learn by processing, and guess what? When you process, you're writing. So nothing is wrong with that, right? And then also there's always a question about what does my child need when I enter a clinical space. So of course they need the scrubs. Some of the students or all of them have their scrubs on. They do need a little bit of a dissection kit when they go into their skills or dissection halls for anatomy. And then I always recommend, because when the students go into the hospital, the clinics, they can't really take their backpack, their laptop. They can't walk around with these big bags. So just a pocketbook, a pen, put it in the scrub pocket if that's all you can do. Or if you do have a little bit, most of our students just walk a little sling bag and they pack everything in there, right? And when they're in the hospital, the clinics, I often just say, please make sure you grab a little Jungle bar, granola bar, something to pack in so that at least you have something to eat while you are there. Because literally you learn to eat on the move. Right, guys? Yes. Okay. Coping mechanisms. Now, a lot of the students, probably with you or your learners, I want to encourage you to try and do the things that you enjoy when you come into the university space. Right? So if you are the athlete, if you are sort of the person that is very creative, continue doing those things. Because when you come here, everything is about the books, unfortunately. But if you already know what your talent is, what you really enjoy, go and do those things. You're going to have to find coping mechanisms. It's a high-strung environment to walk into a clinical space, into a lecture, and you have to have the ability to cope, to sort of get yourself together and continue. Because guess what? You've got to pitch up the next day, right? So try and find the things that you really enjoy and bring it with you when you enter the space. Also, yes, I know, socialization might be a little bit intimidating, building or making new friends, but we have a wonderful mentorship program in place. We match our senior students to our first and second years, and they sort of have a buddy system, right? Our students are sort of giving valuable techniques, experiences to your son and daughter when they start, so that they do not feel lost, and they actually have the ability to transition well into the university space. And then in closing, I think preparation as a prospective health science student is imperative, right? For you parents, guardians, it takes a village. We're part of the village, all of us here, but you're also part of it, and essentially that is what your child really requires. A strong support system should continue. Yes, we treat them as an adult. Faraz alluded to a lot of prospects where they have to be in charge. But remember, I think your son and daughter does have the support system at the university as well. Don't forget that. So it's an entire system of intricate balance to become successful and demands courage and particularly resilience. So yes, sometimes it does take a little bit of a setback to recover, but growth will be there. All the best with your applications and looking forward to welcome you to the campus.
All right. So that concludes our initial session, our first session of the morning and presentations. I'd now like to open the floor up for any questions from the audience. Parents, students? There are students with mics that are walking around. So hands up. Do we have any questions from the audience? I'm going to stand up because I can't see. Oh, no, that's impossible. That's impossible. Okay, I'm going to start with a question. So who of you are going to be applying for financial aid? There we go. So we've got a couple that are applying for financial aid. So maybe just to start off, Colleen, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'd just like to introduce Colleen Kutsia. Colleen is one of our colleagues that works at the Center for Undergraduate Bursaries and Loans. They support students in facilitating bursary applications for private funding, as well as the statutory funds like the National Student Financial Aid system. So, NSFAS. Okay, great. So maybe, Colleen, if you can just share with the audience what you do and the role that you play in supporting students at Tygerberg. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Colleen. I am from the Center for Undergrad Bursaries and Loans. So we manage Stellenbosch University funding for undergrad students. We are based at Tygerberg campus. We have an office here. I think what's important now is there is funding available. So I want to encourage all students to apply. Currently, we have our Stellenbosch University applications that are open currently for our prospective students. That is opened on the 1st of October, and it's going to close at the end of November. So I would encourage you to apply, get that out of the way before you start your final exams. We have the NSFAS funding. Those applications are also open. It closes on the 15th of November. These are important dates. This is all applicable to next year. There is lots of funding opportunity, and I'm not going to go into detail with each and every one of the opportunities, but I want to encourage students to please go to our webpage. It's fined.sun.ac.za. We have funding, we have merit awards, we have academic performance awards, we have the NSFAS, we have a lot of applications that are going to close end of November, which students can also apply for, which is applicable to next year. Please go familiarize yourself with the webpage. Any other funding opportunities that do become available, we will also post on that webpage. So if you go to the SUN webpage, you can just search fees and funding. All of the information will be there. Read up on it. Look at the closing dates. Apply. Please, students, I want to encourage you to apply. There is funding available. We also have our, what we call our corporate donors, obviously, and our health funders. Obviously, that is also linked to income as well as academic performance. So there is a ranking system there, but there are also only funders that look at specific programs. So I encourage all students to apply, to look at the website, the webpage. There's also the dates for the fee payments, which Farah has lightly touched on. The dates start from February till November. If you're not getting funding, there is a payment plan that you can look at to pay off monthly from February till October, November.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Colleen. So can we wait for the mic because it will go into the recording. So your question is very important. We just want to ensure that it's also recorded. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. I just wanted to know, my other daughter studies engineering, and there's a debit order facility that I pay monthly. Is that available?
Yes.
And is that available in terms of residents also, or is it just for the academic fees?
It's for residents as well. Oh yes, now we used to work at student finances. Yeah, it's one university account.
Okay, so it all comes together on the same
All
account
comes together,
and
yeah.
payable by debit order.
Yeah, we'll just allocate it to the relevant
Okay, thank you.
aspects. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? There we go. Oh, Gawa, are you asking as a parent?
Okay, hi, I'm Gawa Daud. I'm from Speech Language and Hearing Therapy. I feel like I've been planted in the audience, but I just came to pop in. I think this is for Annelie. If you could maybe explain to parents about the RES applications when students come to Tygerberg, because there are a lot of not unclarity. Parents assume that if the students have resident placement in Stellenbosch, they'll automatically have it at Tygerberg.
Yeah, so maybe just to contextualize that, our speech therapy students are at the Stellenbosch campus for 2 years. And after the 2 years, so say they're in a university accommodation on the Stellenbosch campus and they're now coming to Tygerberg for their 3rd and 4th year, your accommodation isn't transferred to Tygerberg, you have to reapply to the Tygerberg campus accommodation. Annelie's going to explain the process. And the same goes for our occupational therapy students who are on the Stellenbosch campus for their 1st year and then come to the better campus, Tygerberg, from their 2nd year onwards. Annelie, over to you. And I want that to be noted. This is the better campus.
Yes, like Farah said, the speech students in their 2nd year, they reapply for Tygerberg, and the OTs after in their 1st year. It's not a given. We do give preference to students currently in residence for placement on Tygerberg. So if you are staying privately, you'll most probably go on the waiting list. So it's not an automatic move. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to say something more? Okay. Now we'd sure.
Okay. So Annelie touched on a very important point. If you are in residence, whether you're on Stellenbosch or Tygerberg, you have to reapply for residence for the next year.
Yeah.
So all students in residence will receive a notification. It usually closes at the end of June or end of July. And if you miss that date, you are not guaranteed. You actually have to apply for the waiting list for the following year. So you won't be reallocated back to a residence. You have to go on a waiting list. And if there's space opens up, you will get allocated. We have also experienced students that have forgotten to reapply, and they get placed in a different residence in their 2nd or 3rd year.
So that is very important, the reapplication for residence placement. Yes, sir.
Thanks. Just as far as residence notifications are concerned, by when does one typically get confirmation about residence and placement?
Anna?
Okay, just yesterday I received all the names of the students who accepted their offers, and I also have a list of everyone who applied for residence. So next week I can start with placements. So say about the week of the 13th, that week, I should be completed and you will receive everything by mail. If you did not apply for residence, 1st of November the waiting list will open. That will run until end of November, and just keep in mind that we use the matrics, we use your grade 11 results, just as with the selection. And then middle January, the new waiting list will open. So the November waiting list will close then. Middle January, new waiting list if you still haven't received residence or you decide you want to apply. And then we use your matric results.
Thank you very much.
Sir, you're on a roll. 3rd question from you. That's fine. You have it at the office. Well, it's not a problem here. You're welcome. It's a safe space today. I knew it. I know my customers.
I'm just going to ask what everybody else wants to ask.
Go.
Is there rules regarding motor vehicles and 1st year resident students?
No.
So they're allowed to have a car?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's a pleasure, everybody.
There's no rule. Or no, maybe I should say, yes, there is a rule. You're not allowed to have a car, parents. I'm saving your pockets. No, there is no rule. So in terms of vehicle placement, you are allowed to have a car. You're welcome to have a car. You'll have to pay for parking on campus. As an employee, we have to pay for parking too. And then you can be allocated. But again, we'll communicate all of the vehicle parking arrangements and all of those kind of aspects. You can also go onto the university's website and search for our parking services or transport services, and you'll find all of the information regarding that. But no, we don't discriminate on your year level in that way. Okay, that concludes. Oh, sorry. Naweed has a question.
I actually want to.
You're not following the rules.
Colleen, in terms of funding, is there funding that the students have to reapply for every year, or what's the process regarding that?
With the NSFAS funding, obviously it's just a once-off application. So you apply, you get funded, and then you meet the academic criteria and you fund it until your program completes. For the Stellenbosch University funding, yes, you do have to apply every year. Students will get a notification when applications opens and when it closes. So application must be done every year for Stellenbosch University funding.
Thank you, Naweed. Thank you, Colleen. Okay. One more question. I think that concludes. That I'll take a final question. Or is there another question?
I wanted to ask if all OT students are at Stellenbosch in their first year, or is it divided?
No, everybody's at Stellenbosch in their first year.
Okay.
All the OTs. All the OT students.
Yeah.
So occupational therapy, you all start on the Stellenbosch campus in your first year. And then you'll come to Tygerberg. Speeches are in Stellenbosch for year 1 and 2, and then come to Tygerberg. But medical students, physios, nursing students, and dietitians, you guys are all here with me and my colleagues at Tygerberg campus.
Okay, just because on the application, when you apply for the Faculty of Health Sciences, it doesn't give options from Stellenbosch University.
The residence options?
Yeah, it only gave the 3 options, although occupational was one of my choices.
Oh, was it one of your choices?
Yes,
okay.
so I'm not quite sure how they're supposed to place if it wasn't there.
I then think you can send Annelie an email, or Annelie, you'll respond.
The website is, if you apply for residence, you must apply for both campuses. It won't allow you to only apply for Stellenbosch or only Tygerberg for residence.
Okay, because we did go to Stellenbosch, and then we were there in one of the offices with the guy, and then he just pressed all of the options that were there already while applying.
Okay, so I think what you can do is you can send Annelie an email. Do you have your phone with you? So you can take, do you have an email address?
Yes, I do.
Good. Send Mrs. Scaltz an email, and she will assist you. So she'll have a look at it. Just use your app ID, and then she will look into it for you.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, you're a very timid audience. I'm thinking it's because of the time. Raban. Okay, we've got a question from my comrade colleague,
thank you, maybe just not a question, just maybe an exciting plea I'm making as well, to say that as much as, of course, the focus would be on entering the space to do a successful degree, and, of course, pass in record time, there's also, of course, opportunities for you as as students coming in to really play to continue your leadership journeys. And I think I'm just appealing, as, of course, you know, my role is the leadership development within the university space for students, to say we want you to play your leadership journeys, to build on those. So look for opportunities, balanced, of course, because academics are a priority, to balance so that you can continue building your leadership journeys as you enter the space. So I just wanted to say that, Farah. Thanks.
Koskakulu colleague. Okay, so that's Yeki Mosamotane. He is in our Center for Student Life and Learning, and he's also the residence head at the Nkanyini residence at Tygerberg campus. So thank you, Yeki. So parents and students, that concludes our sessions, our parent-focused sessions. I'm now going to ask our panelists, you may rise and either leave. So you have just been part of like official events, and it's like the audience may now rise. So are we going to stay in the venue? Okay. You're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go. And then, thank you, Megan. Thank you so much for your time. All of the best for the matric exams for you writing matric. You've got this. You've already like done almost 12 years of schooling to get to this point. I promise you it's going to be okay. If there's a hiccup, it's just a little hiccup. It's a bump in the road. It's not the end of the world. Trust yourself. Trust your gut. Parents, bring the tea, bring the coffee, bring the healthy snacks, not high in sugar, healthy snacks, like a low GI for energy and so on. But all the best from us. I really hope to welcome all of you here next year. This is a fabulous university. If you don't decide to come to Stellenbosch and you decide to go to another university, shame on you. No, but if you do decide to go to another institution, there are really good institutions in South Africa, and I don't think you'd make a bad choice to go to any other space. But if you want to choose an educational partner that is going to care for you, look after you, support you, and really find ways to enhance you as a human, not only on your academic journey, but holistically, then come to Stellenbosch. Thank you very much.